Just their policy.
A little warm in here.
I'll make sure it's
I just saw Darwin and I said, I don't know why. He said, I'll go back home. What's the big deal?
The law says you gotta make it bill.
Medicare, Medicaid before us. I don't think we should have it. They might have a policy.
Okay, let's get started. First up on the agenda is Walter, an item that passed in public service or public safety last week. Can we get a motion, discussion?
Here. Walter.
Michael?
Okay.
Tom, second.
In 1992, the Orange County Legislature created a local law when we first began with our 911 telephone system. And included in that local law was a provision to assess a telephone surcharge that's authorized by New York state law to all wire lines, which was the technology at the time in '92, at the rate of 35 cents per customer. That law has been amended a couple of times. Similar laws passed to keep up with technology. Such in 2005, this body created a local law to assess the same surcharge to all cellular telephone numbers, American lines. Now with the advent of additional technology, we have telephones that are called VoIP or Voice over Internet Protocol. We are authorized under state law, the provisions of the state law, to assess each customer with a VoIP telephone with that same similar 35. So I'm before you today to ask that you allow us and authorize us to assess this 35-cent surcharge to all VoIP carriers. They will assess the fees like they do now for the regular hardwired telephones and the cellulars and some for the finance offices.
Tom, you have a question?
Well, what are we bringing last year, and what do we anticipate this law to bring in?
We have about 325, 350 telephone lines, 1,000 telephone lines that are assessed 35 cents a month. So it's, around a little over $100,000 a month to be given. It's kind of difficult to say what the actual numbers are. Once if this body should pass this local law and make that surcharge applicable to VoIP customers, similar to that for the cellular and the wired line, the hardwired lines, then we'll be able to get a much better definitive answer on how many lines are actually on.
So is this only because this is a technology that didn't exist back in 2005 and we amended it?
Right. Voice over IP.
So it just includes it in with everybody else.
And since that time, there are a few major companies that are out there that provide that service. And right now, these customers who have selected to go with a VoIP telephone in their residences are receiving the same 911 services that the others who are currently being assessed that surcharge.
Thank you.
So this really brings everybody up to par.
Any other questions? Jeff?
Yeah, did you look at which customers or consumers use that specific internet phone, currently untaxed method of communication? I mean, is it people with disabilities, or is it people just, who uses it? Do you have any idea?
I don't.
Okay, I mean, is there any demographic, because it's a new tax that I understand the equities, I can appreciate it, that the others are taxed, why should they be exempt? But I don't know if there's a legitimate reason to let them off the hook or not, if it's a specific demographic of users. Did you look into that at all?
Well,
Well, hold on, before you answer, I just want to make sure I understand your question. Is your question based on the fact that if there's a specific group of people that use this type of system now and aren't taxed, that we should not tax them because they're a specific group?
Well, I'm just saying how I would vote. I'm not saying what we should do. It's just, I have one vote. I voted against the imposition of the tax several years ago. So now the circumstances change somewhat in that it's the only remaining, I believe you said, it's the only remaining group that was not taxed. So, you know, one part of me says have it equitable for everyone, but I'd like to find out if there's a specific profile, if it's people, you know, I get calls once in a while from my business where people with certain disabilities use certain technology, and before I vote to impose a tax on them, I'd like to know about it. That's all. I'd also like to know how much money is expected to come in.
the only,
If I had those answers, I would go towards.
A little over 100,000?
Yeah, well, we know the money comes
Go
in
towards
at 100,000. We would imagine there's 400-something thousand residents in the county, and that you're going to pick up a third more, or maybe a
I would
quarter
say
more.
10-15%.
Something like that.
More.
The high-end third.
The only telephone communication system I'm aware of for people who are disabled would be the TDYs, telephone devices for the deaf, and to which we communicate with them via a communicator.
Are they taxed the same way as no tax?
It all depends on what service, telephone service. They have the opportunity to select any telephone service, either hardwired or this, or cellular, whatever they want to use. It's the device itself that is related to people with disability. It's not.
So this is just a choice of technology.
Right. Or, you know, pricing purposes, or perhaps, you know, special packages.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. John, are you here for David? Belated something we have to do. Please all rise. I'd just like to say that no person is indispensable, but Bill Leahy was certainly close to that in this legislature. And I'd like a moment of silence for a dear departed friend who will miss greatly. Thank you. Sure, Bill's looking down, laughing at me now for not putting him first on the agenda. Better late than never, you know? Shaking his head like he always used to do, you know?
Which way is he?
What's new, Stevie?
What's new?
Which way is he looking, Steve? Which way is he looking?
Yeah, he's looking down.
All right.
Would you like to?
Just double checking.
Okay, John, I'm sorry.
Thanks. Dave apologizes for not being able to be here in person, call for the meeting. This legislative request is to accept and appropriate a small grant from the Hudson Valley Greenway, $25,000, to implement the strategy plan consistent with our application, which the legislature supported back in February. We moved the resolution to apply. We won the grant, and now we would like to carry out the project.
So we'll get motions. Jeff, second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay. David and Susan?
Well, you got me.
Just David. Somebody want to make a motion for discussion?
Second.
Go ahead.
Well, on occasion, we get entitlement grants from the state, and those have been coming for the last few years. In this case, we received one it informed us in early February of availability of the grant. It's based on our registration numbers and everything else. And as I said, this is not a competitive grant, this is an entitlement grant. And this particular one's for $13,768, specifically and only for the purpose of it's voting access for individuals with disability grant funds. So accordingly, the only thing we could really use it for is for either permanent measures for improved polling places or signatures, you know.
Okay. Questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Well,
Record
these
set.
are-
Enjoy the afternoon. I know, good. Saving my sweat, bro. Okay, David? David here? Trying to save money. You want to move that down?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to go on to legal aid too?
Yeah.
Okay. And Jimmy too? Yeah, Gary? Okay, we had a meeting a couple months ago, and Eddie wanted to try to get the information back by May. So we're just going to have a brief update today of where we're at in that process, and David's going to make us aware of the possibility of a challenge, but I think we're on high ground anyway. Right?
So far, so good. Could I ask that you speak louder? I'm a little bit disabled hearing, please. Thank you.
Okay. Normally, I don't have that problem, but I'll try to be as loud as I normally am.
Well, I appreciate it. My wife does.
No problem.
I'll just give a very brief synopsis of the law relating to the provision of legal services for indigent persons. The county is required to have a plan for the provision of indigent legal services under county law, section Article 18A. Section 722 of the county law was changed recently. The law previously gave the county three options. One was to provide legal services. One was a public offender, pursuant to Article 18A of the county law. One was the legal aid bureau or legal aid society. The third was a plan of a bar association for a rotating panel coordinated by an administrator. And then the fourth option is any combination of those three. What Orange County adopted was a plan. Orange County adopted a plan where the primary provision of services was provided by Legal Aid Society, and a rotating panel coordinated by administrators established to handle conflicts and a few matters that Legal Aid Society does not handle. And now the county has been looking at changing that plan. So instead of having a rotating panel headed up by an administrator, to replace that with a second legal aid society, with the belief that it would provide a better service at a lower cost to the county. The law was changed recently, so that, and this is where this changed law has resulted in some litigation, which I wanted to talk about briefly. The plan of a bar association or a rotating panel is still an option, but there's also a new provision that says that an option could also be a plan of a bar association where such representation is provided by an Office of Conflict Defender. That's new. The City of New York had a plan similar to Orange County plan, where they had a legal aid society and they had a rotating panel as a conflict, to handle conflicts of interest. The city decided that it was going to set up a second legal aid society to replace the 18B panel. They put out an RFP, and a challenge was brought by the New York County Lawyers Association and other local bar associations, which claimed that the city could not change the plan without, under the statute, without first seeking the approval of the bar association. Then, if the law was changed, the change in the law that I just mentioned occurred during that litigation. The plaintiffs amended their complaint to say that under the new law, it's clear that only the bar association can establish a plan for conflicts that arose. And that litigation resulted in a decision back in January, I believe, where the trial court held in favor of the city. It said, no, the city has the right under the new statute to establish a plan without the approval of the local bar associations. The plaintiffs, in that case, the bar associations, took an appeal to the appellate division in the first department. That appeal is still pending. In the meantime, a stay has been imposed on the city, preventing the city from proceeding with its request for proposals for this modified plan. So that issue is relevant to what the county is looking at, because the county is looking to do basically the same sort of thing that the City of New York did. So the good news is that the trial court's decision is in favor of the city, saying that under the new statute, the city had the right to set up a second legal aid society as its conflicts representation. So I just wanted to, when I met with Steve a month or so ago, I wanted to bring that to his attention. He asked me to bring it to the committee's attention that there have been some changes in the statute, and some questions have arisen about the interpretation of those changes and the effects on those changes. So Hickok County did proceed with an RFP and established a second legal aid society in place of the existing system. And in the event that this litigation, the lower court was reversed, that would probably have some effect on what the county's doing as well.
Knowing what David just told you, and we seem to have consensus to move forward with the second legal aid, wherein 18B is still going to be a small part of that. Do we feel comfortable moving forward? You're saying no?
No, I'd say no. You said, the best part about this whole scenario, in my opinion, is that somebody else is paying the attorney fees, to trash this all out. Until we know what the appellate division is going to do and, where the courts stand on it, why would we waste our time and any money or energy on it if, they say that we can't? We have to have, the rotating pool as we have now. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to move forward until we know.
I don't know that we have to do what we're doing now. I would strongly oppose what we're doing now and have some variation of that as opposed to not moving forward.
The issue is not whether we have to have the rotating panel. Clearly we don't. The issue that was raised in this litigation is that if the
we need permission from the bar.
If we changed to a different system, does that have to be pursuant to a plan of the bar association?
Well, the bar is going to fight it because all their attorneys, they're not going to get any money. So it comes right down to protecting your industry. Let's, be practical, in my opinion. That's what it all comes down to. So that's what, the bar is not looking for anything other than to say, well, if you start another legal aid society, well, it's going to take some of our members out of the out of the money. That's
Well,
how I'm looking at
there'll
it.
still be a need for a assigned counsel, because there are going to be layers of conflicts. So the first
gonna let
layer
a
of
second
conflict
legal aid?
would go, first layer of conflict would go to the second legal aid society, and then subsequent layers of conflicts would be assigned by the court to attorneys in this similar way that they're being assigned now on the ATV.
Yeah, the co-defendants.
There won't be an administrator, you won't be paying for an administrator, the court would simply assign the cases.
Do you have an idea when this is all going to be thrashed out, or they're light at the end of the tunnel? Or?
What I've read is that oral argument in that case in the appellate division is to be heard in May or June this year.
I guess the real question is, has anybody contacted our local bar association with the plan and trying to get some feedback from them? Or are we going to wind up, if we move forward, we're going to wind up in the same situation in New York City? And quite frankly, I prefer to let somebody else pay the legal bills and, get a precedent before we start, dishing out.
This time, we're going to miss the budget season if we delay it too long, having said.
Well, if we delay, sometimes it's, in my opinion, sometimes you're better off to, measure twice and cut once, because we might wind up,
Yeah.
costing more money down the road, so.
And I think a lot of people are just so fed up with the waste that's going on right now, so, I don't know. Dan, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, the only thing I want to say, just in reference to Legislator Pahooki's concerns, is that I think that the whole point of having 18B is to provide a service required under the New York State law or New York State Constitution for individuals who can't afford legal service. And 18B is set up to do that. It's not set up to give members of the bar jobs. It's not set up to provide them with income. It's set up to provide citizens with a service that they need, and we have used 18B that way so far. But if we can achieve that service with a cost-saving measure in place, then it's our duty to look for it. And you can be sued over anything. You know that. You're in real estate.
Yeah, but
you can
we
be
don't
sued over.
know if it's legal.
You can be sued. Well, the law from the state says that it can be done. The lawsuit that's happening right now between the city and attorneys, battling or whatever, maybe is meritless. Maybe that's why so far it's been lost, and it's going to go through a huge appeal process, but that doesn't mean that it has merit. We're looking at trying to run a program, do nothing unlawful. We've been advised that there's a law that allows us to do this. There's a challenge to that law, but laws get challenged all the time. I believe that in the law, and I believe in our duty to provide the services for the citizens who need it the most at the best possible price, no matter what.
In that vein, why don't we get David, Gary, and Jim to come back with some kind of proposal that we can at least start to move forward with? If we realize May, we have to put the brakes on a little bit, maybe we can do that. But we'll at least be ready to move forward with some kind of plan.
We should be ready to move forward.
Because we did have overwhelming consensus on this before.
That's right.
And I can appreciate slowing down a little bit, but I don't want to come to a stop. Let them come forward with a plan that we can at least look at next month, and if we're not prepared to vote on it, we might have to hold it off a couple months.
Yep.
And maybe we can have personnel involved a little bit too, because it's definitely going to have to go through personnel. Yes, Jeff.
I like your conclusion. If it was August, I feel the urgency to have this.
Hold on.
Well, we'd be under more pressure to get this all worked out for the budget season. But since there's a window now for us to see if this could be straightened out. I have no idea how long this stay you mentioned, Mr. Darwin. How long do you think this? Do you have any idea? Is there any inkling of how long this
How long the stay would be in effect? The stay would be in effect until the appellate division decides.
And you think that's in a couple months, maybe?
Well, argument is scheduled to be heard, or I don't know if it's an actual date schedule. Argument is supposedly going to occur in May or June. I would expect a decision shortly thereafter.
Right. Well, it seems like it's a good idea to wait. I think Tom makes a good point. I don't want to have us getting a local lawsuit either. I think there should be some way to kind of communicate with the local bar to see, I don't feel like having them jump in 2 months later to find out we have a lawsuit coming.
Okay. You think you can bring us something back next month? Okay. Good. Okay, thank you. David, stay right there. We're going back to, thanks, Gary. The first time I didn't say anything, right?
I'm sure you're happy that was.
Okay, David, good.
Middletown litigation.
Okay. I have to apologize, Matt Nothnagel was going to discuss this. He handled this litigation for our office. He had to go to the doctor suddenly, so he's not here. I don't know that much about it, except that there was a stipulation of settlement. The county did bring a proceeding against the city to recover taxes. There was a stipulation of settlement between the city and the county. It was signed by Mayor DeStefano and I don't know whether it was so worded by the court or not, but we have a binding stipulation of settlement, so the resolution basically reflects the agreement between the county and the city. The city agreed to pay the taxes that it owed the county agreed to waive penalties, agreed to waive interest, except for a modest 2% interest, managing $500 and change.
Okay, any questions? We get a motion then?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Dave. Okay, the moment you've all been waiting for. Roxanne, you want to come up? Point of information, I do believe this is the same resolution that passed in the last meeting of 2009. It was vetoed subsequently by the county exec, and I don't think there's any variation from that original resolution. Is there, Roxanne?
No.
Okay.
Yes, please. No, there aren't any variations in it. I have been here, as some of you have been, for the last 13, 14 years, and some of you longer, Mr. Bruscia for sure. And we certainly know that with the number of employees that we have, which is the size of a large corporation, really, there would be someone in the position that we can call accountability officer, inspector general, call him whatever it is that you want. And of course, why are they there? We have talked about this through the years. Number one, I believe we owe it to the public. We owe them accountability of what we're doing when we're spending their tax dollars. So that's number one for me. Number two is, of course, the efficiency. And which I, believe that you can say, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. Even when we had the study committee for this law that I'm bringing forward, one by one, department heads were brought through to show us how everything was very efficient, very well done, and we do have some wonderful people in our county government. I have great admiration for department heads as well as different commissioners, etc. I'm very proud of who we have. But people are people. People are people. People get comfortable. You do things in a certain way through the years. There's not always the best oversight. And mainly, the most important part is the oversight very often is not independent. The oversight is connected. It's usually within the departments. It's not that independent pair of eyes that are looking and have the proper ability to be able to investigate from our contract programs to our different departments. You can go through the entire county, I can name it, on what we wouldn't have the ability to do. That if we considered this position that I believe is very important, would not help us. Some of you are new and have not been here as long, so I went back and I started putting some newspaper articles together. I had articles stacked this high at home when I pulled them all out, but I started to put some together, and I went back to '98. I don't want to necessarily point fingers to any specific department. So sometimes it's a different county executive that these are referring to. Sometimes it was a different sheriff. The players were different, but guess what? Many of the problems are not that different, and they continue over and over again. And I do realize in the past that I think it was Dan that maybe said, well, we have a job as legislators to be 21 and investigators, you might say. Well, personally, I don't believe that we have the ability to do that, nor the time in a part-time position, nor the staff to do it. And I do believe that we need, just as we believed in the the wonderful medical examiner office that we set up, just as we believe that it's time, the population has grown, our professionalism needs to be there, our accountability to the public, just as we decided all deaths needed to be treated the same, that you shouldn't have someone, my goodness, you could be a truck driver and a coroner and taking care of those situations before we put the professional office of medical examiner in. And just for a short break to that, I thought it was a wonderful, wonderful committee, and I was very proud to be a part of that. The difference in that committee than the committee that we had put together for the Inspector General 2 years ago was that there was a willingness, it seemed, on both sides. It didn't become politics. It didn't become party politics. I can remember the county exec didn't even come to a meeting for several months. And I remember when he came in, I will never forget, because I was sitting right here, he came in and sat here. And there was a little bit of an attitude when county exec first began to speak, because he had not been participating. And I had a sense immediately, oh my God, he thinks it's election year coming. And because it's election year, this is going to become partisan. Now we're going to have party politics in the middle of this. And I was very proud to be the one that said, could I just speak for a minute before we go any further to the county exec? And I laid out before him that that committee, to me, was on target. It was doing something that was very good. It was looking, honestly, without any political party involved, at a situation that could be improved upon. We can always improve. Status quo isn't just doing the same thing over and over again. And the improvements just don't come because suddenly the county exec may want a commissioner of consumer affairs, or whoever, whatever he decides to combine departments. Sometimes we, as legislators, can say, you know what, look what popped in the paper again. We didn't even really know about it. You start looking for information, you're not getting it. You're getting a story here, a story there, but it's the same thing as if you both witness a car accident. One person sees it some way, another person sees it another. Stories change. We're human beings. We're people. We're people. Accountability. Accountability shouldn't be in any way partisan. And that's what I'm appealing to you today, those of you that are on this committee. I am appealing to you today. I'm asking you, I'm saying it's time, just as it was the right time and something we're proud of with the medical examiner. It's time, and I don't care if we call them Inspector General, Accountability Office. I really don't care, but it's time. And when I pulled out all of the past, kind of histories, and as I said, I just tried to take one or two from each year, if you could roll that down there. And I'm going to just read the headlines. Missing jail money case with grand jury, 98. Another audit of jail okay by lawmakers was 98. Fire jail administrators back as a contractor, 98. This is County Sec Ramping, nepotism in the jail, resolved. Ex-sheriff's aide admits he ripped off prisoners. That's 2000. 2000, lawmakers ask who's at fault for delays on the $30 million project. Orange County lawmakers did not get many answers from the man in charge of overseeing the addition to the county courthouse. Again, it's that information, that ability to be able to get the information, and everyone got it. Not because of the power of one party, but because everybody deserves the same information. Jail lawsuit in federal court tomorrow, 02 this was. And this was the mental health unit lawsuit was heading to court, and because there was a whole question of some patients with being psychotropic drugs were involved in it, etc. Orange overpaying 24 bosses, lawmakers say. Former Orange County Executive Joseph Rampey most likely circumvented county law to allow top managers to exceed caps on their salaries. 01, county executive was pictured in this saying this to the public. When a badge isn't a badge, again, O2, misuse of a sheriff's courtesy badge brings a slap on the wrist and a fistful of complaints. O3, deputies sue Sheriff Du Bois charging reign of terror. I mean, my God, some of these things that you might see, whatever they are, whether they proved to have any merit or not, it still would behoove all of us to have the correct information, all of us given the same information, and be able to have that perception by the public that we represent, that we truly are on top of the game and we truly are watching out for them that we represent first. O2, Diana denies jail allegations. And this is where there was a social worker. It was all over a claim that treatment records were altered. This is O2. Officials ignored Orange County jail warnings. And that was the lax oversight of the construction of the new jail. O3, don't repeat this scenario. Orange County paid $4.5 million to end its courthouse fiasco. This is careless, expensive, and unacceptable. O4, contracting firm in Orange face off. O4, brother, the ethics code could use some revision. O5, all that help, but a baby died. Orange County needs to exercise more control over child protection plans. O5, Diana friend gets a boost. Advisor brought on county account. County might drop the Hartford. 06, cop appreciation party under investigation. 06, political party leaders lobby for the Broadway campus. And that was a party chairman who was in the press out in front of a whole campaign to sell pistol cam. Case against Deputy Cost. That's 07. Accused cop rejects plea bargain offer. 07. The Prospo's pistol cam role is under question. Again, I didn't even mean to bring up a name because I don't want to bring up any specific name in that matter. But I will tell you, sometimes you have people in the wrong places. It may be the right time for them, but to me it's the wrong time always. And all of a sudden we hear about the same political party head being in another county talking about privatization of a nursing home. Then we are involved with what property to build the extension is the Newburgh campus. And then we're involved with the sheriff's office with pistol cam, and then advertising all over the country, and nobody seemed to know anything about that. I'm going to go to Oracle. I just got this recently. I think it came in the mail, and it was W-2s distributed on schedule, on track for the 2010 audit. Touting all that they were to do. Millions of dollars, and it was supposed to be done a few years ago. We never have understood what went wrong there. 09, department heads tout safeguards. And that was all during the committee that was listening to the different department heads come forward to tell us about the accountability that was in place, within their departments. In other words, everything was under control. Everything was under control. And you know what we find out? It's not under control. It's not under control. And legislators call for stricter rules for the use of the county-owned vehicles, 2011. County accused of improper payments, 2011. If not the clerk, then we did it. You know what? I had piles and piles. And yes, it's a newspaper, and I know we can point our finger and say, and what do they know? What are they doing? They're just looking for a good story. How many times did we as legislators read about what's happening in county government in a good story? And you know what? Maybe the story wasn't all the information, or information could be given that corrected it, but very often that information is not forthcoming very easily. You feel like you're pulling teeth sometimes. And I feel very strongly, as you can tell, I have felt this way since I'm first in the legislature. I'm very, very proud of many things, many people in this, in our Orange County government. There is, no question about it. But I will say people are people. And as any large corporation would have a person in a position similar to what I'm asking for. And I'm going to go back for a minute to that incredible committee that I was so proud to be a part of. And I think that had been talked about for 25 years at least. The medical examiner, at least 25. It seemed like it went on forever and ever and ever. And never resolved. Their committees went nowhere. And I'm just saying, let's take it somewhere. Let's really, get into this. I put that law out there today, and maybe there's specifics that you don't like about that. Maybe that's not something you want to see move forward. And by the way, I fully support it, even though it would be Mr. Pillmeyer as chairman that would be, say, appointing that person, opposite party. I just want to see it done. And to end with, I want to go back right here to the county executive. This came in one of the newspapers in the mail that we get, and it was February. And it's the county exec speaking, and I pulled it aside because I went, wow, gosh, wouldn't it be great if we could really kind of move forward in this manner. But he was being asked about not only the president's speech, but the new governor's speech. And the county exec's response, and of course the president's State of the Union address he was discussing. For me, one of the most significant takeaways from these two speeches is the importance of working together. The strength of our great democracy comes not just from sitting together. Remember, they were going to sit together so it looked okay to everyone? But taking the time to roll up our sleeves and actually getting them to work together for the good of the people that we serve, for the good of the people we serve. I have supported, the combining that we've done of departments. I have supported the Commissioner of Consumer Affairs. I have supported 99.9% of what the county executive and this legislature really have suggested when I thought it was good for the people, when I thought it was good for the county government to be moving in that direction. And that's what I'm asking you to do. I laid that law there. I want you to look at that. That's fine if you don't agree with that. I would love to see it brought further. I would love some of the attitudes left outside the door and a real put it together kind of an attitude. Again, when I sat and I said to the county executive that day concerning the medical examiner, wait a minute. I know we have an election next year, but we're not going there. We're all doing this because we believe we need to look at that. And as I said, it was a very proud time for me. It was the best committee I think I've ever served on. And that's what I'm asking this committee today. Whatever it is, talk about that law. It's there, whatever. But can we somehow really roll up our sleeves and work together to do what I believe is right for the county? This isn't even a third of the stack I had, and I'm sure I don't have them all cut out. Although I probably have most of them. I just ask you, to please discuss this, and let's really roll up our sleeves. Let's sit down and let's do this the way we should be doing this. Thank you.
Okay, before I entertain a motion on this is one of the recommendations that came out of the Accountability and Efficiency Study, and it's probably the only one we'll act on today. And we're going to go through the other ones and address them as Katie had recommended. I don't think we got much resolved. Bill chaired the meeting last month. But one of the more salient issues which comes to mind was the pistol cam issue. And I have to say, I sat as the chairman of Public Safety when that issue came out, and we had full discussion, and you brought it forth, Roxanne, along with a couple other legislators, and we discussed it fully. And if everybody remembers correctly, we rescinded our request to Senator Larkin to ask for a grant for Offender Watch, which we ended up getting, and also a program to teach the Debris Elementary School, I believe, a scenario for, what was it?
Active shooter scenario.
Active shooter scenario. And it was the legislature that made that decision, the tripartisan legislature, because Michael was independent at the time. And, you know, we didn't need to set up $1 million department to do that. And I think, you know, I'm just going to say, and I don't want to, I'm going to have more to say at the end after the legislators speak, but for every issue you brought out there, I could give you 10 fantastic things that the county government's done counter to that. And I think when those issues have arisen, we've addressed them in decisive fashion, in short order usually, and I don't think, personally, I don't think an accountability officer is going to preclude that stuff from happening. It's going to happen. If you go out...
I agree that. I agree that it'll happen. It's not going to go away. That's what I'm saying. It's not. But you know what? To be able to say to the public, we have an independent office, and they're going to be looking. Certainly, the county exec is the county exec. He has to act quickly on many things. But that doesn't mean we're not still, as legislators, looking for the information. If you remember, even with the pistol cam, or that whole period, actually when I was arguing against the sheriff's department putting an integrity officer in, remember the reason was, I said clearly to Sheriff Du Bois, I agree with you. I don't agree where it's placed. I believe that money, the money from that, the $60,000 salary or whatever plus the benefits, would have been one position in an independent office. There's another one we put several years ago in social services, and the same kind of position. I just don't believe it should be there. I believe it could be in an office. And if you remember, I know there's a few people that will say, oh yes, and we read some of those things, Miami, 1% of a budget and millions of dollars. Come on. We were talking about opening this possibly with about $300,000 if you moved a couple positions into that office, and then we create what that does. That office wouldn't be, it's not there to be, you know, kind of policing and hiding behind every door. It'd be there for the legislature, it'd be there for the county executive. If it rose to something criminal, certainly it would go to the district attorney. But most of all, it'd be there for the people of Orange County. Most of all for the people of Orange County.
Well, I know you're very passionate about this. I just happen not to agree with you. I just don't think it's, you know, the Office of Government Services, I think it's well worth its money. We saved, you know, so much in purchasing a loan, things that we didn't look at in the past. And I'm open-minded to that. But I just don't think this office is going to do that. The integrity officer in the Sheriff's Department, you didn't agree where it was placed, but if that position did nothing else but just investigate 207... He drove someone up to Albany. If that position did nothing else but investigate 207C, which is one of the main functions of that job, it'd be well worth it right there. It saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars right there. But that's going to be vetted in Dan's committee, as Jeff alluded that he's going to bring back to abolish that position. We're going to have full debate at Public Safety on that. So let's not go into that here. But I just don't agree with it, Roxanne. I mean, you know, you say you want to debate on this issue now. We only had, the committees that were set up to look at this only had 4 meetings. And then we were asked to vote on it at the midnight hour of your tenure as chairperson.
And I'm asking today for something.
And I didn't think it was fair at the time. I'm allowing on the agenda. We were having discussion here today. It's something you feel strongly about, and it's fair to put it on the agenda. I don't think it's going to pass today. I don't think there's enough support for it. But you explained your position, and you know, legislators want to comment on that. Who wants to comment first or ask questions? Jeff? And then
I'd like to make a motion that we place this on the discussion right now so all of us can get in on the conversation. It's interesting.
Okay.
So I formally introduce this on behalf of...
Motion. Is there a second? Second. Tom, second. Okay, start it.
First, I want to thank Roxanne, Legislator Donald, for her leadership on this issue and her consistency. And also, I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Fenario, who provided leadership, former legislator. To me, it was one word that you said that I'm hoping, and I expect you are totally sincere about, and that is about having an open mind, and having an open mind to have improvements in government operations. And I think that this is one way in which it can make significant steps forward towards accountability for the public. I think there's a need for it. I think that like Roxanne said, there's 2 that we've already placed on the payroll because there was evidently a need in 2 departments. And our concept to the Democratic caucus, I hope this doesn't become partisan, but our caucus is committed to having a county-wide view of efficiency and accountability, not just a department or two. I think it's also a way to help employees to become whistleblowers and feel protected rather than having a fear or apprehension that their supervisors might call them out or put them in some kind of risk. So I think that what's essential for this to work is that it's independent. And I'm not going to be repetitive. I mean, Roxanne laid it out very, very skillfully. But we're not questioning, certainly I'm not questioning anybody's integrity in our government. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about perhaps there's been errors in judgment, and we need to have, we would benefit if we had a local group or individual specifically to investigate, to look into these matters on behalf of the public. The one last point that I'll make, at least on this round of conversation, has to do with costs. Because I understand there's a hesitancy by some legislators to engage in an activity which some of the figures actually have been downright reckless. Somebody said $7 million. The county executive between $1 million and $2 million. That's pretty.
Well, today we're voting on the concept, right? There's
discuss financial commitments at a later date. But the way we're discussing, and this goes back for 2 years ago. You know, there was a conversation to just get launched, to get started. The first conversation was $150,000, which, by the way, would be financed with the two positions that we already have in county government. Others said $200,000, $250,000, $300,000. I don't remember a single person, even with all the conversations that we had with the experts coming in and providing their expertise on this kind of issue. Nobody was talking about millions of dollars. So I understand. We can have a fair discussion, a fair debate. Hopefully we'll have the votes. If we don't, that's the democratic process. But I'd like to make sure that we talk about, with some accuracy and some sincerity about the plan, rather than just some bogus discussion about inflated estimates about costs. Very last point is,
this is a point of information, because did not the testify come out of that testimony we heard from the expert out of state say it was 1 to 1.5% of your budget?
It could be
I mean,
in one county.
Exactly.
It could be at one county, and also
Okay,
another expert said get launched at $150,000.
I just heard that. Because that's where you get $7 million, if you do math.
Had the committee, had the vote not been rushed in December of '09, the committee probably would have brought forth, the committee would have probably resumed in 2010, and the cost probably would have been borne out at that time.
Well, just one last point, and other people can make their comments. No, it's all right.
That was a fact.
It's okay. I feel it's good to get it on the table, right? This is a local person, a local office. We don't have to, right now, if there's an issue, do we have to up the ante? Do we have to rely on outside audits, outside investigations? I hope not. I mean, I would prefer having to rely on ourselves and show some self-reliance. But we don't have that independent office. We don't have that independent voice that's representing the county government today. And that's not disparaging comment about anyone, but that's what's needed. And I think if we go down the road we're going now, we're likely to have more of the same, and Legislator Donnery can roll out the next roll of mistakes or errors in judgment, and that's the human situation, the human condition. But I'd like to see us do a better job. It's as simple as that. And we don't have to go to Albany or Washington to look for assistance to make sure things are run in a fair and straight and honorable way. I have confidence that if you open your minds and you open your hearts to this idea, then we perhaps could work together and make some refinements. Okay?
Thank you. Before Melissa goes, I just want to say that the Chairman Pillmeyer commissioned us to look at accountability and efficiency, and we're certainly trying to do that. That's why we went through what we went through over the last year. And I think we did have some good recommendations. As to the Office of Government Services was one, legal aid two we're looking at now, because I know, my gut, that we can save money in that department. But that's all I have to say right now. Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay. I first wanted to say, I just wanted to thank Roxanne, because Roxanne had asked me to be on that study committee. And when I speak here today, this has come before us, Roxanne, I'm speaking as a colleague, not a Republican. I just want to say that up front. I was honored to be on this committee, and I felt the first couple, 2-3 meetings were wonderful. We were having people come in, Wayne was having people come in and speak to what we have in place. Where I started getting frustrated was about probably 5-6 meetings in that year. And just looking back and refreshing my memory, the frustration didn't go away, but you know, I went back to the minutes. And one of the things that was very frustrating was that as a study committee, we were talking about this concept. Maybe I misunderstood, but I was also under the impression we were going to talk about the need. And none of this, I recall, was introduced during that year. None of this was. It never sat on the table. More research than that. But back to the committee. The frustration for me was, okay, we can talk about this concept. And the cost was an issue. You know, maybe we can't get a cost today. But as a study committee, I thought it was our role to look at, once we establish a need, what are our other options, plural. I mean, why did we have to just limit ourselves? I know this is your idea and your passion, but as a study committee, we should be looking at other options as well. And then the cost of those options. By the end of that year, I got to be so frustrated because I still didn't feel that we had discussed the true need. Again, these newspaper headlines, I get it. But there's more to this. There's a lot more to this. And I was thinking, I don't know, maybe it's a bad analogy, but when my kids do their research papers, I tell them stay away from Wikipedia because anybody can control Wikipedia. And it's no disrespect to the newspapers, but a lot of times this is opinion, or it's, you know, trying to get a headline that will sell papers. I mean, that's my personal feel. I would just like to answer. I would just like to answer that piece. Because actually, after I did there, to tell you the truth, I wish that I had just pulled out words, you know, just major words that would have said the areas that it came from, so that you would see how diverse they were. And it's less about the headline. It was about some of them were building a jail, others, you know, dealing with contractors. Some were dealing with nurses. Some were dealing, oh my gosh, well, here's pistol cam. Some were dealing with conflicts, big conflicts of interest. I mean, come on, someone had given me that year the Orange County Committee, your dinner brochure, and the very person in here that was in front of all of this has this big ad from their company, one of the sponsors at the dinner that year. And to me, my gosh, it was like so out of place. That's the kind of thing that becomes distasteful. And it could happen in it can happen with any party. It happens. You know, people, they're always suspicious over, well, they're having fundraisers, where does this come from? Look at how the money will follow this. And other people hand me these things. I don't know if you've gotten letters, but I do pay attention when employees mail letters to me, or people in the citizens mail letters, because they are alerting us that there's something going on, and you're saying, geez, I hadn't even looked at that, or gosh, I wonder if there's anything to it. And very often, if I really believe there is, I'll follow up with a phone call. And sometimes you don't go forward, and then other times there's things that you would question. And I'm saying we all have this. It's party politics. It happens. I'm trying to keep this out of it. I'm trying to keep that out of it by an independent office, an independent investigator. Part of what became frustrating to me in the committee was the stonewalling that began to happen. I mean, we could have sat there and had every department head in this county come forward to tell her how perfect everything was. This shows it wasn't. You know, it became very frustrating for me also. And again, it will happen. People are people. I believe just by having that office, people could become more careful. Oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Maybe that's not the right thing to do. Who was it that went up to the ethics presentation? Steve Gross, and he came back and put papers in our box, and I went through and I'm reading it and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how many situations that I thought actually fit in that were outside what they should be. And don't talk certainly our financial director could vote separate from the man that is his employee, you know.
But then he shouldn't have been on the committee in the first place.
I agree, he never should have been on the committee.
But he was.
That got put on politics on the floor.
All right.
That was politics on the floor that had a vote where it never should have been with an employee.
Yeah, but the legislator, we have a little ways to go.
Yes, I'll just close up, because again, you know, I'm not here to attack Roxanne, I'm not. Roxanne, I know you're passionate about this, but just today, I mean, I'm gonna have to look through these, but just some of the articles, you know, the way they were read, I don't know that paying for an inspector general, or whatever we would call it, would have any say in any of this. I'm not convinced yet that we should be spending taxpayer money on things that we don't know an inspector general would even have a say over. To me, this is not proof.
Inspector General is about information. It's really about information, being able to have the authority to truly investigate and give the county executive, the district attorney, the proper information. It's about information.
Okay, Michael, and then Dan.
Yeah, I appreciate Roxanne's point. I do support it initially, and I think I want to reiterate. I think a real salient point that Roxanne made is that, you know, we all owe the public accountability to the money we spend. Who would ever disagree with that? I think that's the one statement we have to keep up on the bulletin board and keep an eye on. You know, what troubles me in terms of the process, and Melissa said it better than I had planned to say it, but I want to just reemphasize it, is that we went down that road in that process with a predetermined solution. We thought the solution was we want an inspector general. Now let's have a discussion how we're going to do it. In a classic problem solving would say, let's take a look at the symptoms. They're symptoms, not data. They're symptoms. Let's look at symptoms. Let's do some problem analysis. Let's try to get to the root cause of each of those and find out what's causing these kind of things to happen, and then look at some alternative solutions that say, well, maybe this is a better way to go, or this is a better way. I spent 30, 25 years of my life in a career overseeing a quality assurance program, where we had 600 employees and we had to look at every medical record that was done and audit things. And I can tell you there's many, many solutions to get at solving the problem you're presenting. And I would have liked to see more looking at the problem, the causes of the problem, before we rush to the solution. I know a colleague of mine and I was in the room now, I often used to joke about, there's a solution looking for a problem. You know? And let's not make this a solution looking for a problem. Let's work on it. And to it, I'm going to argue that the problem we've identified, as we see it now and we're working on, is not going away. Mr. Pillmeyer has asked us systemically to look at everything in all the departments. We're going to bring it back together. I would hope through that process we come up with some clear picture of what are the causes of some of the issues that may be existing and come up with a recommendation. And I think there's plenty of opportunities that the government can do, both sides of the administration and the legislature, to provide better accountability. And let's try those first before we spend money on it. And I think there's another advantage, from my experience, when you use a system, one option which is more a systemic option, you're not necessarily going to end up with problems that are never going to go away. They may go away. Because once you get a buy-in from people to try to solve the problem, you're likely to find fewer and fewer and fewer problems to be solved. And that should be your goal. Your real goal, if you had an inspector general, is put them out of business in 3 years, because you did such a great job. You want to make your system better. You don't want to catch people. You want to make your system better. The inspector general catches people. Let's try to make our system better. And I think therein we can find it. If we do some work that Mr. Pillmeyer is giving us a leadership on, we can find this right solution. So I'm not against trying to accomplish accountability or owing that to the taxpayer. but I think we can't accept that this is a solution until we understand the full problem.
I love silver bullets. I think this is an attempt at creating a silver bullet to say that by having this position, by funding this position, we're going to kill all the bad, or a good majority of the bad that could go on in county government. And I don't know if that's really the case. I have to agree with Mr. Amo. I often do when he speaks in terms of researching data and looking at opportunities to review data to find solutions in there. He's normally right, but that takes time. Roxanne, you talk about some of the best committees you've been involved in and the products of those committees, and that they took a long time to get the work done. Well,